Hi, everyone, and welcome to StudioJake. I, of course, am your host, Jacob Airy. Thank you for joining me on my vidcast where I talk about all things pop culture, from film to anime to television to novels to celebrity news and so much more. I would really appreciate it if you would like this video, share it out, leave me a comment, and subscribe. I'm trying to reach 1,000 subscribers. I'm well over 800, so any new gentle taps or smashes of the subscribe button really help me out. All right. You've heard me mention in videos that I'm a professional marketer. I'm not trying to flex, but just, from my expertise, I've worked with nonprofits, I've worked with for-profits, I've done marketing for podcasts, I've done marketing for film, small films. I'm not saying I did blockbuster type stuff, smaller indie films I have done some marketing for, political campaigns as well. So I have some knowledge when it comes to marketing. And I ran a poll recently where I asked, hey, would you like to hear more about marketing on this channel? And I got a positive yes. Of course, the other answers were no and shut up, nerd. But yes took the majority. So I'm going to do this video as kind of a test. Let me know in the comments if you think that this is something you would like to hear more about. Today, I want to kind of combine the two. Like this vidcast I use to talk about my hobbies. I really enjoy cinema. I really enjoy anime. I really enjoy reading. And as you can see, collecting the things that are, connected even tangentially to, the type of media that I consume. So I thought about combining it and talk about, recent failures that we have seen in sort of the entertainment industry space and why I think that happened despite heavy publicity from, the corporate overlords that own these IPs, these intellectual properties. So to start with, I just recently saw The Flash and I have a review of it up on my website, StudioJakemedia.com. So feel free to head over there and read that review. And I'm going to talk more in depth about The Flash and why I think, it problems aside from just looking at it from a movie viewer perspective. But specifically, when it comes to marketing, why did The Flash fail? It's on, course to lose $200 million. What about the live action remake of The Little Mermaid or The Rings of Power? From Amazon. It's the television show that they claim was based on Tolkien's works. Poorly written fan fiction, as far as I'm concerned. Now, it boils down to one thing, but many problems. Don't get me wrong, but one thing in particular, I noticed that Hollywood is trying to grift into, and that is activist marketing. Now, there are exceptions to what I'm about to say. For instance, Nike is heavily involved in activist marketing, but it seemingly hasn't had an effect on them. The whole idea of go woke, go broke, or go woke, get broke, whatever you want to say, largely has not really affected Nike. And I really think that's just because they, even though they do that, they still produce excellent products. And also with nonprofits, right? So we see, whether it be on the left or the right, we see sort of PACs and, media outlets from both sides of those aisles and even some in the middle that, they rely on activist marketing. And I've engaged in it as well. For instance, I have often said that my fantasy series, The Seven Royals, it is not woke. I've written that. And so, like I said, there are exceptions to this, but when you look at the broader scheme of things, it seems that activist marketing kind of falls apart. And I'll tell you why, because it doesn't rely on what makes the thing special. And this is something I've always said. When you look at a collective sort of sense, whether it be, and like I said, it doesn't matter the side of the aisle, collectivism always fails because there is no room for individual creativity, and that's what produces, in my humble opinion, good art. Now, some things done by committee can get through. There's always exceptions to the rules. But when you look at how Hollywood in particular has tried to utilize activist marketing, it has failed dramatically. So, for instance, Namor, he is based on Greek mythology, from the tales of Atlantis. But in fact, Marvel decided to virtue signal. You casted a Latin American actor to play the part. They moved the underwater kingdom from sort of this Greek centric to more Aztecan and Mayan, and instead of saying, "Hey, listen, give it a chance." The MCU is different from Marvel Comics. We've said that from the very beginning. So let us give it a chance. Go see the movie and do this. But they didn't do that. They immediately attacked people, prospective audiences, from seeing Black Panther Wakanda Forever. They attacked them and said, "How can you be against this? You're all a bunch of racists. You're all a bunch of bigots, and we hate you. The movie's not for you." Well, to be fair, Black Panther Wakanda Forever did decent at the box office, but it wasn't the smash hit, the cultural phenomenon that the first Black Panther was. And as a result, it really hurt. Now, of course, the actor they got to play Namor, he's been involved in a Me Too scandal. Now, please note, I am not saying that he is guilty. I believe in innocence until proven guilt. So I'm just saying that didn't help, the future of the Black Panther franchise as far as Marvel is concerned. And it certainly didn't help to put audiences in the theaters. And the same with The Little Mermaid. Disney made the exact same mistake. Oh, you don't like the fact that we took a Danish fairy tale and put an African-American actress into the role of Ariel? Well, you're just a bunch of ists and phobes, and you should be ashamed of yourself, and blah, 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 blah. And what happened? The movie collapsed at the box office. China outright rejected it. China has always been Disney's, and as well as many other Hollywood studios, it's always been their fallback plan. If the movie fails in the United States, they send it to China and, give lots of money to the tyrannical government that runs that nation. And with Little Mermaid, it ultimately failed, not just in China, but in Korea and Japan as well. And we saw this with Rings of Power, right? So they recasted, they race swapped characters. They took Galadriel, who was supposed to be the embodiment of beauty and grace, and made her a snide, snarky, sarcastic jerk. And everyone was like, "Where's Galadriel?" But if you didn't like it, then you're an istophobe, right? You're just a sexist who can't handle strong female character. Never mind that the same people who wanted to watch Rings of Power, including myself, we were all cheering when Éowyn slayed the Witch King. That doesn't matter to them, and this is the core problem with activist marketing, is it hurts the audience. It damages them, and it makes them not want to see it as a result. American audiences in particular are tired of being lectured to by Hollywood, the same system that protected monsters like Harvey Weinstein, Woody Allen, Bill Cosby, and Phil Spector, a whole host of others. Roman Polanski, they freaking gave an Oscar to Roman Polanski, who was found guilty of, harming and giving drugs to an underage girl. Whoopi Goldberg went on The View and said, oh, it's not that big a deal. Disgusting. That's why activist marketing fails. And if you want me to, Hollywood's typically, far left, almost in commune land over there. So if you want me to use an example on the right, we see this a lot of times with conservative news outlet. They constantly bang the drum of we're not woke, we're not woke, we're not woke, we're not woke, we're not woke. And it's okay to say that occasionally, like I said I did with my fantasy series. But my whole advertising strategy around my fantasy series is not that it's just not woke. I want people to show, it's your favorite fairy tale characters come to life, united in one novel, or two novels now, soon to be three, united in this series to take on your favorite villains from your favorite fairy tales. It's, a roadmap to how it can be successful. And, it used to not be this way. Whenever whenever Hollywood wanted to insert political correctness into something, they always did it very subtly. They had very subtle writers. I always say this: Star Trek, the original series, Star Trek, the Next Generation, Star Trek Enterprise, those are all great examples. They snuck in messages through at least decent storytelling. For instance, Star Trek Enterprise, they had a whole episode that was anti-hunting, and they snuck it in with this very subtle, this being these hunters that they run into, they're actually tracking something that is sentient and alive, and they don't even realize it. And so Captain Archer, he has to do his thing. It's very it's very it's a lot more, I'll say it like this, it's a lot more creative than just having a director or an actor or a publicist come on and say, if you don't like this, then you're not, insert political slant here. I'm seeing this a lot too with now that with a presidential run coming, we're seeing this a lot with the two parties and their nominees. So President Joe Biden, he's obviously the de facto nominee. A president, to my knowledge, has never been ousted from his party's nominee, but yet he has challengers. He's got Marianne Wilson. He's got Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I heard a handful of others, but he's even refusing to debate them. He won't even show up. And so the media, they're just basically the PR firm of the DNC. They're outright ignoring them. Well, with the Republicans, we see this where a former president who is claiming that he was cheated out of his reelection bid, President Trump, and I see no reason to doubt him. He wants the GOP nominee. He thinks he should be, but now we see challengers rise up. We see Ron DeSantis, governor of Florida, and a handful of others that are rising up to take him on. We see Larry Elder, a former candidate for governor in California. A lot of these folks are rising up, and Trump is focusing and attacking, Ron DeSantis because he has the best chance of ousting him. And we're seeing this. If you don't like X candidate, then you're not really conservative. Well, as someone who's a conservative populist, I find that incredibly insulting. It's like, for me, I'm not even a registered Republican. I'm a registered independent. And so whenever I hear that sort of, activist marketing where if you don't support my guy, then you're not really what you say you are, I find that incredibly insulting, and I don't want to engage with that candidate, much less his surrogates. I'm not going to be beaten into submission over who I think should be the nominee. That's nobody's business. And that, so there you go. Whether it works or not, we'll see. The nominees always have this weird way of playing out whenever it goes to the primary stage, especially for some reason everyone likes Iowa and New Hampshire. I don't know why, but that's just the way it is. And both parties, it's really weird. So I'm curious to see how this is going to continue, because after all, Disney in particular has made some major firings. They've done some stupid ones, like the woman who basically saved, I think it was Toy Story 2. They fired her. The servers had been wiped at Pixar headquarters, but she had brought it home on a thumb drive, the film home on a thumb drive. If it hadn't have been for her, that movie would have never happened, but she was fired. She did a good thing and was not rewarded for it. I know that was years ago. Maybe she did other things, but we're also seeing several people on Disney who are sort of pushing the Reimagine Tomorrow, which was their big push toward woke ideology, where Amazon has already said that Rings of Power season 2 is going to be very different from season 1. But if they don't reboot it completely, I don't know how they're going to get anyone. One of the weird things that Rings of Power did, and you can watch my Rings of Power playlist, I have a whole playlist where I have videos discussing it, was they invited these social media influencers that they claimed were fans of Lord of the Rings. No one in the Lord of the Rings community had ever heard of any of them, and they showed them, I guess, the first two episodes, the pilot and the second episode, and then they did a video and they just slobbered all over. Everyone remembers that famous line where one of the chicks on the panel was like, "I know you're talking about my lady Galadriel." It was just so embarrassing and juvenile, and same for the show. So, but instead of redirecting it and being okay, people didn't like that, how can we fix this, they immediately go out and attack the audience, they attack the fan base, they attack the fandom. And DC is guilty of this as well. We saw this with Blue Beetle. Whenever Batman was insulted in the Blue Beetle trailer, what's the first thing? Oh, you don't want to see a Hispanic superhero. Shut up. You have no idea what you're talking about. It's just so sad because James Gunn, he's really good at paying lip service to the fans, but then when the chips are down, his hatred for us really shows. Like, I remember one time he was being interviewed. I guess Kevin Feige came on the set of the Suicide Squad, and they said, "Hey, was that weird?" And he goes, "Oh no, there's no enmity between us like there is between the fans." What a gross thing to say! How horrible! Of course, James Gunn is a pervert, so there's he says gross things a lot, I imagine, but it's very deceptive. It's an attempt to gaslight you. And listen, let me tell you something. Now, this is not having to do with marketing, but you don't owe Hollywood anything. They are making film, they're making television, they're making podcasts. You do not owe them the benefit of the doubt or your time. You don't. If you say, "Hey, I don't like Rings of Power," and someone says why, and you give an explanation, and they say, "That's not good enough, I need more," you don't have to do that. You don't have to engage with that person. I do, because, it's actually really easy to trip up people who like that sort of politically correct media. But you don't owe Hollywood your time. You don't have to engage with the writer's strike. You don't have to engage with the Screen Actors Guild strike. They're all out there. They make more money than we do, and they're all out there marching. It's like, spare me. Anyway, back to the marketing side of things. I think we will start to see a shift. Kevin Smith definitely learned this lesson, right? Known liar, Kevin Smith. He made the first season of season 1, part 1 of Masters of the Universe Revelations. It's obviously not about He-Man. It's obviously about Teela. He gets called out for it. He lies and says He-Man is a part of it. He-Man's only like in a handful of episodes. So then when part 2 comes out, he focuses completely on He-Man, and it's scenes from like 2 episodes. So he figured that out. And I have a feeling if season 2 ever gets greenlit, He-Man will be a bigger part of it. But doesn't matter. You don't owe them your time, your money, and certainly not your attention. And when it comes to this sort of broad, activism marketing, I think it's going to continue to fail, because no one wants to be lectured to, no one wants to be told what to do when it comes to the media that they consume. And I think we're going to eventually go back to everyone just telling the cast and the crew to keep their mouths shut. Or if fans have poor reactions, they're going to come out and say, "Hey, listen, just give it a chance. Give it a try. If you don't like it, fine, but at least try it out." It's the whole lecture the audience about diversity and inclusion, which most of Hollywood don't even know what that means unless it's on their word-a-day calendar. But I think that's why this activism marketing fails. And like I said earlier, there are some exceptions, but I think that it's cost Disney, Warner Brothers, Amazon Studios, it's cost all of them more money than they care to admit. So we're going to see a refocus eventually. There's still people, going around making scenes about Rings of Power, especially with season 2 coming out, even though they had to recast some of the characters. But whatever the case may be, I think that it's going to go back to sort of more of those epic trailers that we used to see. The cast is just going to go around and talk about how great it was to work with one another, even though they all hated each other. and that'll be the end of it. Now, there'll still be some outliers out there. I'm sure Elizabeth Banks isn't, she can't keep her mouth shut. She's always out there gabbing about, stuff, and she's a Hollywood billionaire, right? Maybe a millionaire. Maybe she's not worth billions. I don't know. But anyway, if that's kind of my explanation on why, sort of that activist type marketing fails, whether it be woke, whether it be on the other side of the aisle, I think that we're going to start moving away from that activist, minus, political campaigns and minus, political organizations. But I think as far as entertainment industry goes, as far as other facets such as sports, beer, I think that it's going to be reined back in, and we're going to go back to a time where we could just enjoy a beer on the holidays. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that you'll give it a thumbs up, that you'll leave me a comment, tell me what you think, that you'll share it out with your friends, and of course, consider subscribing to StudioJake. I cover all kinds of nerd and pop culture topics, including film, television, anime, comic books, and so much more. I hope that you'll also head over to my main website, StudioJakeMedia.com, where I have even more news, views, and commentary. Also, if you'd like to support the channel, head over to my locals page. That's studiojakemedia.locals.com. It's the best way to support me. I'm trying to build a little community there. I have exclusive reviews and articles, so definitely head over there and check it out. And I'll see you next time, right here on Studio Jake.